A winter market square explodes with shouting as a young K-9 officer pushes through a wall of raised phones and flashing cameras. Snow whips across police tape that barely holds back the crowd. In the center, a city clerk waves a property contract like a joke, calling the officer's $400 cave purchase a useless hole in the mountain. Laughter spreads. Someone yells that he has lost his mind. Beside him, his German Shepherd Rex sits perfectly still, leash loose, posture disciplined, eyes scanning without panic. The officer gives one quiet command. Stay. Rex does not move, even when a shoulder slams into the handler. Then the dog's ears snap forward. Delivery truck idles nearby. A scent drifts on the wind. The officer notices instantly and kneels. Search focus. Rex lowers his nose, slow and controlled, ignoring the noise. The mayor steps closer with security, demanding the officer leave. Rex suddenly freezes, staring at his handler, waiting for permission. Beneath the laughter, something is wrong. Would you walk away, or let Rex reveal what they tried to hide? Tell us below and stand with brave K-9 stories. Scene goals focus on grounding the officer's emotional state, establishing isolation, and framing the cave purchase as a deliberate escape rather than a mistake. The opening visual is a narrow mountain road at dusk, melting snow turning into dark slush under the patrol vehicle's tires. Pine trees close in on both sides, blocking cell signal and city noise. The officer drives in silence, radio off, jaw tight, eyes tired but alert. This journey is not curiosity. It is retreat from months of internal department tension and public ridicule after the cave purchase became local gossip. Key events unfold with deliberate pacing but steady tension. He stops at a rusted metal gate chained loosely to a stone pillar. The lock resists before snapping open with a metallic echo that carries too far into the valley. Rex remains inside the vehicle until the command comes. Heel. The German Shepherd steps down calmly, tail level, nose already testing the air without lunging or barking. Both move toward the cave entrance carved naturally into the mountainside, its opening partially hidden by dead vines and fallen branches. Inside, the corridor narrows quickly. The first thing the officer notices is not darkness but silence. No dripping water. No insects. The air smells stale despite visible cracks in the ceiling where fresh wind should pass. His flashlight beam reveals scrape marks along the stone floor, parallel lines too straight to be natural erosion. Dog commands follow quietly. Down. Rex lowers his body near the entrance while the officer scans. Watch. The dog's ears rotate, tracking distant echoes rather than reacting impulsively. Discipline is constant, controlled, professional. The emotional beat deepens as the officer pauses, hand resting briefly on the cold wall. This place was meant to be peace, a location far from paperwork and whispered accusations at headquarters. Instead, unease replaces relief. Rising stakes begin subtly. Rex stands without command, body stiff, emitting a low controlled growl that signals alert, not aggression. The officer steps closer to a smooth section of rock that looks recently disturbed. He presses his palm against it and feels a faint stream of air brushing his skin from behind the stone. End beat lands sharply. He taps the surface with his flashlight handle. The echo returns hollow. Kneeling, he brushes away dust and discovers thin rope fibers embedded between the stones, weathered but deliberate. The cave is no longer a refuge. It is a message. Something here was hidden with intention, and Rex has just confirmed they are not alone in the past this place is trying to bury. Scene goals pivot from isolation to social exposure, shifting the tension from quiet unease to open humiliation. The officer enters town hall expecting paperwork and routine processing, but the atmosphere is already charged. Conversations lower when he walks in. Few heads turn, then phones lift. The echo of his boots across the marble floor feels louder than it should. Rex stays close at his left knee under the quiet command, heel. Posture straight, movements measured, eyes scanning without reacting to whispers. Key events unfold quickly. At the registration counter, The clerk reads the cave property address aloud. Laughter breaks from a small group near the waiting benches. Someone mutters that only a fool buys a mountain hole. Another questions how a K-9 handler could afford even that. Sarcastic remarks test boundaries, probing his professionalism rather than the purchase itself. Cameras tilt toward Rex as if expecting the dog to misbehave. The officer gives a calm command. Sit. Rex folds into position instantly. Tail still, gaze forward, discipline on display. The mockery shifts from the dog to the handler, now framed as unstable rather than incompetent. The planted clue arrives in a quiet slip. An elderly records clerk shuffles through forms and murmurs, almost to herself, that the cave was sealed evidence years ago. She freezes, corrects the sentence to sealed entrance, and avoids eye contact. The officer notices the correction more than the words. Emotional beat deepens as he scans the room and realizes the laughter feels rehearsed, the questions aligned, the timing too precise to be random. This is not casual ridicule. It is pressure designed to discourage curiosity. Rising stakes intensify when a council member steps forward with a polite smile that does not reach his eyes. He warns that digging into the cave's history could reflect poorly on departmental trust and career stability. The message is friendly in tone but firm in intent. Phones continue recording, turning the exchange into public theater. Rex remains motionless, breathing steady, ears tracking only sudden movements, never breaking command. End beat lands on a small, easily missed detail. As the officer turns to leave, he passes a trash bin marked restricted. Inside, beneath crumpled forms, he catches a glimpse of a shredded red stamp fragment that reads case file. He does not stop. He does not reach for it. He only notes its presence, the way one notes a crack in glass before it spreads. Outside, the winter air feels sharper. The cave is no longer just property. It is connected to record someone tried to erase. Scene goals accelerate the story from suspicion into deliberate investigation. The officer returns to the cave before sunrise, headlights cutting through drifting fog along the mountain road. This time the visit is intentional, methodical, and documented. A portable body camera clips to his jacket. A second handheld flashlight rests in his pocket. Rex exits the vehicle only after the command heel, posture steady, breath visible in the cold air. The cave entrance looks unchanged. Yet the officer now views every stone as potential evidence rather than scenery. Key events unfold with quiet precision. His phone vibrates repeatedly with official department emails ordering an immediate unit transfer, citing operational restructuring. The timing is too convenient. He silences notifications but screenshots each message, storing them offline. Inside the corridor, Rex moves forward under the command search wall, nose gliding along stone seams without scratching or barking. The dog stops near a section of loose rocks previously unnoticed. The officer kneels and gives the command, hold. Rex freezes, muscles tense but controlled, eyes locked on the spot. The emotional beat reveals layered fear mixed with determination. The officer's breathing slows deliberately as he shifts two stones and exposes a narrow metal latch hidden behind mineral buildup. He records every movement, narrating time and location for clarity. Behind the latch lies a shallow cavity containing a small notebook wrapped in faded cloth. Dust falls in soft clouds as he lifts it carefully, documenting condition and placement. The cave no longer feels abandoned. It feels interrupted. Rising stakes intensify when he realizes the notebook contains coded entries, dates, and fragments of names. He timestamps the footage verbally and sends an encrypted copy to a trusted former partner before losing signal deeper inside the cave. This small action becomes insurance against sudden silence. End beat lands quietly but sharply. While scanning the chamber with his flashlight, he catches a faint carving on the wall, initials etched with patience rather than panic. Barely visible, deliberate, and repeated. Someone wanted to be remembered. Someone expected to be erased. Scene goals shift from private discovery to external pressure, testing the officer's resolve through authority rather than ridicule. Midday sunlight spills across the mountain slope when a government vehicle arrives without prior notice. A senior official steps out with 2 security staff, claiming structural safety concerns and liability risks. The tone is polite, rehearsed, and firm. Rex remains seated beside the officer under the command "Stay." Leash slack, gaze tracking only sudden movements. Influence calls begin immediately. The officer's phone lights up with department heads urging him to prioritize career stability and abandon personal investigations. The language is supportive on the surface, coercive underneath. Emotional tension tightens as suspension threats are mentioned without being formally stated. The officer feels the weight of reputation, pension, and years of service balanced against a notebook wrapped in cloth. Rex shows controlled warning behavior only when necessary. As the senior official steps too close to the concealed wall, the officer issues a low command. "Guard watch." Rex rises into a silent protective stance, body angled between the official and the stone. No growl, no lunge, just unwavering presence. The message is clear without aggression. The security staff hesitate, unsure whether to interpret the posture as threat or discipline. Rising stakes peak when the security team requests the officer's camera for inspection. The request is framed as procedural, yet urgency betrays intent. He declines calmly, stating documentation rights and chain of custody. Tension thickens in the narrow corridor, every echo amplified. End beat lands with quiet authority. Rex moves without command toward the concealed entrance and sits directly in front of it, blocking access with simple obedience rather than force. He does not bark. He does not bare teeth. He simply refuses to yield space. The official pauses, recalculating. The cave remains silent, but the dog's posture delivers a message louder than any argument. Something here matters, and leaving it alone is no longer an option. Scene goals deliver the first undeniable revelation, shifting the narrative from suspicion to proof. The officer returns to the cave at dusk, the fading light outside contrasting with the growing clarity inside. Rex enters beside him under the quiet command, "Heel." Movements controlled, senses alert but disciplined. The notebook recovered earlier is now carefully opened under the beam of a steady flashlight. Its pages are thin, edges curled with age, but the writing is precise. Not frantic, deliberate. Hidden truth begins to surface through patterns rather than single statements. Dates repeat beside short-coded phrases. References to footsteps, uniforms, and late-night vehicles appear between symbols that resemble map points. One name is never fully written, only hinted through initials. The officer photographs each page, cross-referencing the timeline with archived department logs stored on his phone. What first seemed like personal notes now reads like survival documentation. The antagonists momentarily regain control when his phone rings inside the cave. A lieutenant's voice fills the chamber, calm but edged with warning. He states that the missing person case connected to the area was permanently closed years ago and advises the officer to stop creating problems from old rumors. Legal consequences are mentioned without detail, authority leaning on implication rather than facts. For a moment, doubt presses in. The cave feels smaller, the notebook heavier. The emotional beat pivots sharply. Instead of retreating, the officer steadies his breathing and rechecks the wall carvings he recorded earlier. The initials match a sealed report title he glimpsed in the town hall trash bin. Coincidence collapses into connection. Rising stakes intensify as he realizes the notebook entries align with the exact week a departmental search was officially declared complete. Timeline does not fit. End beat lands with quiet finality. While adjusting his footing near the inner chamber, Rex pauses and taps the stone floor lightly with his paw, not scratching, simply indicating interest. The officer kneels and brushes away dust. Embedded between 2 flat rocks lies a tarnished metal object. He lifts it carefully into the light. An old K-9 service badge, scratched but recognizable, its serial number partially visible. It is not abandoned equipment. It is evidence that a trained search once reached this very spot and stopped. Not because there was nothing left to find, but because someone decided it should end. Scene goals intensify urgency and compress time, forcing the officer into a choice he can no longer delay. Morning light has barely touched the mountain ridge when his phone vibrates with an official notification marked immediate. Reassignment effective today. New unit. New city. No appeal window. The message is brief, clinical, and final. For several seconds he stands outside the cave entrance, breath visible in the cold air, thumb hovering over the screen. Walking away would be easy now. The system has given him an exit that looks like promotion but feels like removal. The forced decision arrives quietly rather than dramatically. He locks the phone, clips the body camera back onto his jacket, and gives Rex a single command. Heel. The dog steps forward, posture steady, unaware of paperwork but fully aware of tone. Inside the cave, the air feels heavier than before, every sound sharper against the stone. Fatigue shows in the officer's shoulders, in the slower pace of his flashlight beam, yet his movements remain methodical. He unwraps the cloth that held the notebook and lowers it toward Rex's nose. Track. Rex inhales once, twice, then moves with controlled certainty along the corridor. No barking, no scratching, just deliberate steps and brief pauses where scent lingers in mineral seams. The path leads past the hidden latch and deeper than they have gone before, to a narrow split between two rock faces that looks like a natural fracture. Rex stops and sits, signaling discovery without force. The officer widens the gap carefully, revealing a secondary chamber barely large enough to stand in. The second clue appears almost invisibly. Tucked into a crevice at shoulder height is a small recording device coated in dust. He retrieves it gently, turning it in the light. The battery is dead, but the memory card remains intact. Later playback through his phone reveals muffled voices, fragments of commands, a distant argument cut short. Not clear enough for conclusions, but clear enough to prove presence. The emotional beat settles into quiet exhaustion balanced by loyalty. The officer kneels beside Rex, resting his forehead briefly against the dog's collar, a silent acknowledgement of partnership that paperwork cannot erase. End beat lands with cold clarity. The voices on the recorder do not belong to strangers or distant officials. The tones, the phrasing, the cadence are familiar. The corruption is not outside the department walls. It is inside them, close enough to know procedures, close enough to redirect searches, close enough to send reassignment orders before sunrise. Scene goals intensify urgency and compress time, forcing the officer into a choice he can no longer delay. Morning light has barely touched the mountain ridge when his phone vibrates with an official notification marked immediate. Reassignment effective today. New unit. New city. No appeal window. The message is brief, clinical, and final. For several seconds he stands outside the cave entrance, breath visible in the cold air, thumb hovering over the screen. Walking away would be easy now. The system has given him an exit that looks like promotion but feels like removal. The forced decision arrives quietly rather than dramatically. He locks the phone, clips the body camera back onto his jacket, and gives Rex a single command. Heel. The dog steps forward, posture steady, unaware of paperwork but fully aware of tone. Inside the cave, the air feels heavier than before, every sound sharper against the stone. Fatigue shows in the officer's shoulders, in the slower pace of his flashlight beam, yet his movements remain methodical. He unwraps the cloth that held the notebook and lowers it toward Rex's nose. Track. Rex inhales once, twice, then moves with controlled certainty along the corridor. No barking, no scratching, just deliberate steps and brief pauses where scent lingers in mineral seams. The path leads past the hidden latch and deeper than they have gone before, to a narrow split between two rock faces that looks like a natural fracture. Rex stops and sits, signaling discovery without force. The officer widens the gap carefully, revealing a secondary chamber barely large enough to stand in. The second clue appears almost invisibly. Tucked into a crevice at shoulder height is a small recording device coated in dust. He retrieves it gently, turning it in the light. The battery is dead, but the memory card remains intact. Later playback through his phone reveals muffled voices, fragments of commands, a distant argument cut short. Not clear enough for conclusions, but clear enough to prove presence. The emotional beat settles into quiet exhaustion balanced by loyalty. The officer kneels beside Rex, resting his forehead briefly against the dog's collar, a silent acknowledgement of partnership that paperwork cannot erase. End beat lands with cold clarity. The voices on the recorder do not belong to strangers or distant officials. The tones, the phrasing, the cadence are familiar. The corruption is not outside the department walls. It is inside them, close enough to know procedures, close enough to redirect searches, close enough to send reassignment orders before sunrise. Seeing goals shift from pressure to direct confrontation, removing any remaining distance between suspicion and danger. Late afternoon shadows stretch across the cave entrance when vehicle doors slam outside without warning. Footsteps approach with urgency rather than caution. 2 uniformed officers and a plainclothes official step inside holding printed warrants, voices echoing against the stone before their faces fully appear in the light. Their language is formal, their posture rigid, but their timing is aggressive. The warrants demand immediate surrender of all recovered materials. The protagonist commits fully in this moment, not through defiance but through clarity. He keeps his tone level, stating chain of custody rights and the presence of active documentation. His hand rests near his radio, not his belt. Rex stands at his side under the command, "Stay close," body aligned with the officer's knee, eyes tracking movement without growling. The atmosphere tightens as one of the men steps forward too quickly. The officer issues a low command. "Block." Rex shifts one step, placing himself between the advancing figure and the evidence bag, posture firm, no teeth shown, no sound made. Rising stakes surge when a sidearm is unholstered but never aimed. The metallic click echoes sharply, louder than any shout. No shot is fired, yet the message is unmistakable. The cave, once silent, now hums with restrained conflict. Dust drifts from the ceiling with each raised voice. The officer's breathing steadies instead of quickening. He presses the emergency call button on his radio, voice calm as he requests neutral backup and cites procedural risk. The emotional beat peaks in the seconds that follow. This is no longer career pressure or social ridicule. It is a line crossed into intimidation. Rex remains disciplined, weight forward but leash slack, responding only to tone and command. End beat lands on an accidental reveal. During the tense standoff, a flashlight slips from one antagonist's hand and skids across the floor, its beam swinging wildly before stopping against the far wall. The light settles on a section of stone previously unnoticed. Carved letters emerge from shadow, deliberate and deep, naming a specific superior officer. No one speaks. The cave itself has just provided testimony, and the silence that follows is heavier than any accusation.